know that you have been anxious to learn more about this project and to provide some feedback on it, and we apologize for the gap of information sharing that has happened. We appreciate your patience because of the constraints of this particular project, its location on the stadium property. Early design has been focused on working within these unique constraints. And we're also aware that this project is of particular interest to our bicycle community and that many of you are here tonight to discuss that topic. So tonight is an opportunity for you to help inform how we can address that bike connectivity. And we want to assure you that your input is important and that you'll have ample opportunity after the presentation to provide your comments and ask questions. Again, I just want to remind everybody to please post your questions using the Q&A feature. During the presentation, if you'd like, our team will be answering as many of those live on the chat as we can. So we encourage you to do so. Next slide, please. Before we move into the context, I just want to summarize some of the community engagement activity that we have done on the Red Line. We had a Red Line virtual open house September 9th. We also presented to the Bicycle Advisory Committee on September 21st. We presented to the Urban Transportation Commission on October the 5th. We had a station at the Project Connect team event on the Urban Transportation. And then, of course, we're here tonight with our virtual meeting. So now I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Sam Sargent to provide the context on the McKalla station. Take it away, Sam.
Well, thank you, Jackie. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I think this is a really exciting project, especially because McKalla Station is a public-private partnership with the owners and operators of the Q2 Stadium, so that'd be Twin Oak Ventures as well as the City of Austin. And because of that, the design process is a little bit different than what we've been working with on previous projects, where it might be right-of-way or property that we own outright. So it's an opportunity to be creative and to find ways, although some of our options are quite limited, to figure out how people are going to interact with the stadium, with the developments that are surrounding the stadium, and with the different modes of transportation. So tonight we're going to go into some of the details, including the constraints of the station's design, but also opportunities, and make sure that we get feedback here so that people can let us know how they would like to access this space, how they might be passing through this space, and any questions or concerns that you might have. I think that we've been getting out to the community already, which has been fantastic. We've been talking to many of our partners out there with various nonprofits, as well as the city and adjacent property owners, including residents. But this is really our prime opportunity to hear from you. Over the past couple of years, I'd say 3 years, let's call it, Capital Metro has been working with the City of Austin and community stakeholders regarding opportunities to enhance bicycle access and compatibility near our transit stops and stations. This area is no exception. We've been working with both the City of Austin as well as the Line Parkway initiative to identify opportunities for connectivity in this area. We know that we need to balance the physical and financial constraints of the project, but I would say especially safety, as well as the current and future operations of the Red Line in this area. Right now, the project team currently envisions an 8-foot wide pathway between Breaker Lane and the station. And we've been working with the city, where we understand there's a preference for a potential wider pathway to accommodate bicycles through the station area. I would reiterate, though, that Capital Metro's top priority is ensuring the safety of our customers and the people who are traveling through the area. We have some concern, including from our chief safety officer, who's not here with us this evening, about people on bicycles and scooters moving quickly through the space, as well as pedestrians who are leaving special events or customers who are deboarding our trains, and the conflict that creates. If anybody had reason to be downtown during past South by Southwest before the new downtown station was constructed, when that block shared both vehicular traffic as well as rail customers, cyclists, and pedestrians, it was quite a volatile mix, to be perfectly honest. But But I think that there are a lot of options that'll address some of the concerns from safety, as well as cyclists, as well as people out there in the community who just want to make the most out of this really important space. The main issue with the specific intersection of transit customers traveling east or west, or standing around the future ticketing area in the station plaza, is that it is a lot of people coming together in one very finite space. And so now that we are at 30% design, a lot of people coming together. We have an opportunity to hear from you, but I think it's also a good chance for our technical team to let you know how much thought has gone into this, both the constraints and the opportunities, and what those concerns are, and also letting you, the public, know that we have been working incredibly closely with our partners at the City of Austin, as well as nonprofits. In fact, since fall of 2019, when we began really talking about bicycle connectivity in this area, and not just in the project area for McKalla Station, but we've had over 40 meetings with our City of Austin and nonprofit partners to discuss this. And we've had the opportunity to share some of these designs with the city, of course, and our nonprofit partners as well, because we want to make sure that we're getting as much input as we can. So I appreciate everyone who has joined us this evening. I hope that that provides a little bit of context about what our thought processes are, what our concerns are, but also the fact that we are excited about this space, and we know that you're excited about this space. And so how can we create a space that works for everybody safely, is accessible, and is also good placemaking? So I think that we've got the slide pulled up that King is going to begin with, and I'm going to allow King Call, who is our Director of Capital Projects and is one of the project managers on this important project, to start talking about our 30% design. King?
Thank you, Sam. Good evening, everybody. My name is King Call, and I'm the Director of Capital Projects with Capital Metro. I'm going to walk you through the preliminary design and other details regarding McKalla Station. As Sam mentioned, the station is being built in partnership with the Q2 Stadium. As such, our design options are somewhat constrained. We have to design a station that will serve up to 20,000 people on game days and balance that with a comfortable, accessible, safe, and reliable facility for our regular customers. As with all our rail projects, I must say that public safety is our #1 priority. Looking at this slide, before I go over the exhibit, I would like to mention that McKalla Station project has two parts to it. One is station area, and the second one, double tracking and drainage improvements. McKalla Station location is on the Red Line track south of Breaker Lane, and Q2 Stadium is on the west, Delta Drive to the east. Rail track is shown in red color on this exhibit, which runs north-south direction. Double track will begin from just north of the Breaker Lane and goes south up to Capital Metro's North Operations Facility, which is about 6,200 linear feet, with the drainage improvements all along this segment. Improvements of 3 railroad crossings are also included in this project. That is Breaker Lane, Rutland, and Runberg. I should also mention that project includes new passenger rail station, customer amenities, site-specific canopy designs, crowd control and safety provisions, double tracking, drainage improvements, train signal and control systems, modifications to the grade crossings, and sidewalks. Bike connectivity is still in development stage. Next slide, please. This exhibit again shows the area of the new station. It is between Q2 Stadium to the west and Delta Drive to the south, sorry, to the east. Next slide, please. This slide is one of the 4 detailed plan sheets for preliminary engineering design. I will start from north to south. There are 2 tracks starting from north of Breaker, shown as orange lines or red lines, you can see. The area shaded brown is the railroad right-of-way. On the west side of the tracks is 8-foot wide sidewalk between Breaker Lane and the platforms. Next slide, please. This is the main layout of the station project area, and this exhibit shows 2 side platforms, one on the west side along Q2 Stadium, and the other one is on the east side towards Delta Drive. There are ramps from platforms to the pedestrian crossing, which is 24 feet wide, connecting east and west sides of the project. That means it is basically connecting Q2 Stadium to the west and Delta Drive to the east. The area shown in green is the plaza area, which is on part of the Q2 property. The area shown in red is the Red Line Parkway trail, which is coming in from Aguilar Street from Breaker Lane area and going out to McKalla Place in the south. The challenges and constraints of this project are mainly the right-of-way, which is shown in the brown color. We have only 50 feet right-of-way available in this area to accommodate the station platforms and double tracks. There is, another challenge, which is 5.5 feet vertical drop in the elevation from top of rail elevation and Delta Drive elevation. So that is why we had to provide a series of ramps to address that issue between Delta Drive and the rail platforms. Next slide, please. This is another slide for the layout, which is towards the south of the stations. This slide includes one of the this is the slide which includes the event platform, which is shown in gray color. That is the event platform, and it's going to be open only on the game days. On the other regular service days, this will remain closed. And you can also see this Red Line Parkway trail through the Q2 Stadium, which is shown in red, which exits out on the south side to McKalla Place. Right. Next slide, please. This is a cross-section of the double track and the sidewalk that has been accommodated within the right-of-way. You can see from this exhibit that we have only 50 feet right-of-way available, and it is barely good for accommodating 2 tracks. And we have also provided a sidewalk which is 8 feet wide at this time. And we will further discuss about the sidewalk and bikeway that is being intended to provide there. Next slide, please. This slide is a spatial queuing crowd management slide, which shows regular service as well as the event time train staging. In the regular service, we will only have northbound and southbound operation of the rail service, and on the event days, we will stage 4 DMU rail cars on the west side track. That is shown in 2 will be going to the south. Those are shown in green, and 2 will be operating towards north side, which are shown in a sky blue color. And again, there'll be another train rail car stage on the east side track, which will be used for operating towards the downtown side. Next slide, please. This is the rendering of the McKalla station, which shows how crowded it can be during the game days. You'll see a lot of people. There'll be thousands of people trying to catch the train from this platform and from this station. Next slide, please. We have also another project, which is a quiet zone project. And we have 4 crossings there, which are going to be designed and constructed for quiet zones. That is Runberg Lane, Rutland Drive, Breaker Lane, and Kramer Lane. We are at this time working with FRA and the city departments to have a good plan to implement additional quiet zone crossings. At this time, on Red Line, we have 42 quiet zone crossings, and these 4 will be added to that list. We will conduct a diagnostic review to determine the requirements to convert 4 additional crossings into quiet zones. And during normal operating conditions, Capital Metro will be able to cross these intersections without sounding the train horn. And I did mention about this Runberg Lane, Rutland, Breaker Lane, and Kramer Lane. And we are trying to complete this project in parallel with the McKalla Station project, so that there is not much disturbance to these roads beyond our time period, scheduled time period. With that, I would like to mention that we have received many questions and concerns regarding the bike connectivity at McKalla stations. We hear you and will continue to work with our partners at the city active transportation department to ensure that connectivity. And with that, I will pass it back to Jackie and Sam for further discussions.
Thank you, King. I appreciate that update. Jackie, what do we have next on our agenda?
So we will open it up now to Q&A and let you guys give us some feedback and ask your questions. We have a whole bunch of questions in the chat. We are working on those, so we appreciate your patience with those. But if you would like to tell us your feedback or ask a question live now, you may do so, and just raise your hand in the raise your hand feature that's located in the more
in your bottom,
down at the bottom of the screen where the 3 dots are.
Or in more, you should be able to raise your hand. Although Jackie, we've got about 20 questions in the Q&A. It seems like we should start tackling some of those questions first.
All right, let's do that. Let's do that. A lot of them are comments, and I'm just going to go ahead and start with those then. We heard from Joseph Turco. As a season ticket holder, I would like to know when you think it will be completed. I want to commute from Cedar Park to the game. So can we talk about the completion date, Keith? King, do we have a completion date?
Yes, it will be fall of 2023.
Fall 2023. Thank you. Okay, then we have a comment from Chris Hornsby. This area is very poorly served in terms of bicycle and pedestrian safety, including the parkway path within the station would benefit both the stadium, easier access for cyclists and pedestrians to events, and others using the path for recreation or commuting. Bike paths go through other stations such as downtown and MLK with no issues. Thank you, Chris. All of these are being documented, by the way, in our comment log. Let's see, Tom Schwerd, hybrid pedestrian beacon on the shared use path should fully address the cyclist safety concerns for the 2% of the time pedestrians are entering and exiting the stadium. Thank you, Tom. Jenny Hansen says, I would like the red line parkway to go through McKalla Station. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Jenny. And let's see, Scott Philgo. Cyclists use the rail system and also want safe access. Let's assume all users are expected to practice safe transportation and use infrastructure to get to rail facilities, excuse me, safely and efficiently. Thank you, Scott. Dave Westenbarger says, I second Noah's comment. I encourage planners to include the red line parkway through McKalla Station. Do we have any hands raised? I'm not sure I'm seeing everybody.
Jackie, we do. So some people are having trouble raising their hand. So to that end, I've opened up the chat. So if you can't find how to raise your hand, you can just let us know that you'd like to speak, and we can go ahead and include you. It looks like, let's see, it looks like Tom Schwartz would like to speak. Did you want to start there?
Sure.
All right, let me go ahead and allow Tom to talk. Tom, I think you should be on the air. You just need to unmute.
All right, I think I've unmuted. This is Tom Schwartz, Active Transportation Advocate, Cedar Park. I don't understand this routing the Red Line Parkway off of the Capital Metro right-of-way and closing it down, other than the small amount of time you're having pedestrians enter and leave the stadium. We need this route. Capital Metro committed to the Red Line Parkway, I think it's 2004, and small pieces have been built, but we need this to actually happen. We need this active transportation route from Austin up to Leander. It needs to happen because there currently really isn't a safe route if you're not driving a motor vehicle. This is critical to the safety and mobility of many, many people. And diverting off the actual red line route, and my understanding is crossing numerous vehicle lanes or driveways or things like that, it's not a good answer. We need a 15-foot shared use path or 12-foot bike lane plus 8-foot pedestrian path or whatever. We need a significant piece of infrastructure to support active transportation along the whole corridor. And I don't see this safety concern for people entering the stadium with cyclists on the right of way. You put up a hybrid pedestrian beacon, you put up warnings, it will be resolved. Cyclists don't want to drive into pedestrians. They will slow down. Questions?
I'll just say, Tom, as a fellow Williamson County resident, that I do appreciate what you're saying in terms of the ability of people to commute or recreate, in using active transportation. I think there are some great facilities in certain areas, but getting that connectivity into Austin and then connecting further to the Austin Urban Trails Network that Katie Weddick, who's on the call today, works with, which is a fantastic network, is a concern, and it's one that we hear often. I think that we will continue to work to find solutions in the specific Q2 McKalla Station area, just as we'll continue to work with Katie Weddick and the team at Public Works, as well as Jen Golick, and she's on the Project Connect side of the house, as well as advocates like Red Line Parkway Initiative to see how we can find opportunities to create an urban trail pathway that either is against or next to the existing red line, or generally follows its alignment. Because the 2004 resolution for what was then called All Systems Go did talk about finding ways to collaborate along the rail for using hike and bike trails, and for finding possibilities of hike and bike trails along the existing right of way. And then in 2007, Tom, you may know this, but for other folks who are on the call, there was a rails to trail study that was completed by Capital Metro, and they worked back then with a lot of partners around the region, whether it was city of Leander, I assume the city of Cedar Park, even though they would not have been a member of Capital Metro at that point, as well as the city of Austin. And they identified some different parts of the alignment and some different criteria for how they should rate this trail network. And a lot of it wound up following our red line right of way where that was possible, although in a lot of places we only have 50 feet of right of way. And in other places it recommended creating protected bikeways either on street or off street that still allowed people to cycle or walk or run between the station areas. And that it also even made recommendations in this general area about the feasibility of a trail in what's now the Kramer Station area, still requiring 5.5 or 6 acres worth of right-of-way from private landowners. And I say all of that because we've long known that there are great constraints here, not just for expanding the red line and doing a lot of the double tracking work that we intend to do to bring our frequencies on the red line lower and to increase our reliability, but there are just great constraints up and down this area. So I say all of that by way of background and to also say that we hear you and we are working very hard with our talented counterparts over at the city to find a solution. So
Sam,
just want to say I appreciate that comment.
I really appreciate that, Sam. And my understanding is that the Cap Metro right-of-way in Cedar Park is all 100-foot right-of-way. So even with the double tracking project that's going on now, there should be sufficient space to do a trail. And just be aware the current Cedar Park bond package, which the draft came out just recently, Cedar Park is ready to spend close to $20 million on dedicated trails funding. That doesn't even count the trail components of other transportation funding, including a route along the red line. Now, currently they have it routed across, proposed along Brushy Creek Road, but that's because they didn't really understand that this was an option, right?
Sure.
We work with Capital Metro to actually make that option happen because it's a much safer route if we can follow the red line.
And Tom, I appreciate that clarification. When I said 50 feet, I was referring to the area around the stadium, but you're absolutely right. It does widen as you get further north, and that's great insights on the work that Cedar Park is doing for active transportation, and maybe we can connect separately and discuss further. But thank you for your comments and for, as Jackie mentioned, the many comments that we are currently logging right now. That are coming from folks who support the Parkway. So
thanks, Sam, for discussing this with Tom. We have several people who are in the wings, and I think it's important to point out that the designs you're seeing right now are not set in stone. They are preliminary. So your feedback really does make a difference in what the final solution for bike connectivity in this area looks like. Jackie, I'm not sure, did you want to take live questions or do you have some Q&A that you wanted to go through?
I've got a couple of questions. Most of these are comments which are being documented and all talking about the bike connectivity vis-a-vis the Parkway. So I will document those, but there are a few questions that I want to get to. One is Julio Carrillo asks, have you thought about multi-level solutions? And I'm going to kick that to the project team.
Sure, and I can start on that. Again, I'm Cam Carter, Vice President of Construction Facilities at Capital Metro, and I'll give you a little bit of background on that and then turn it over to King for a little bit more details. But we have evaluated going above and below grade to get from Delta Drive to the Q2 Stadium. And so given the narrow area that we're working within, going above grade was a pretty tall tower with a pretty long ramp in order to make accessibility requirements. And then tunneling was somewhat prohibitive just because of the utilities that we would encounter, as well as the same thing, having to make the slopes in a short span between those distances. So those were evaluated very early in the process, and doing those, there was a combination of cost constraints related to that, as well as the narrow area that we had to work within in this specific location.
Is there anybody else on the technical team that wanted to talk about this? I'm not sure if we've got King here. How's this in the background?
Yeah, Ken said it all. The constraint for going above the railroad tracks is that we have to have a vertical clearance of about 23 feet 6 inches. So that increased the cost significantly, and the ramps that are required to reach 23 feet 6 inches height is of great length, and we could have not accommodated in the constrained right of way, that much long ramp.
Okay, Jackie, did you have other questions from the Q&A? I have, just by the way, so for the people in the audience, I've got 3 speakers in the queue, Tom Wald, then Richard Fadley, and then Michael Green. So we are aware your hand is raised. For those in the audience, if you want to raise your hand, you can. If you can't raise your hand, you can always type into the chat, I'm raising my hand, and I'll make sure that you're added to the list. But Jackie.
We do have one more question, and then we can move to the live questions. Anonymous person says, is there going to be a secure bike parking area at the station similar to what is currently at Kramer Station?
And again, we will provide bike parking associated with the station itself, but we do not at this time have area for a bike facility similar to the Kramer station. We just physically don't have the area. We have not revisited the opportunity to provide a smaller area, and that's something that maybe we can look into. But at this point in time, we will have bike parking, just not enclosed secured parking.
Thanks, Ken. Jackie, did you want to take a live question?
Yep, let's do live. Thanks.
Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and open Tom Wald's mic. I think, Tom, you should be patched through. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Lonnie. I have a number of comments. I'm going to try not to go over more than a couple of minutes. The introduction is that my name's Tom Wald. I'm the executive director of the Line Parkway initiative. We founded in 2017 to support the completion and the success of the 32-mile Red Line Trail and Parkway in order to provide access to transit, nature, and opportunity for those who cannot afford automobiles. In 2019, the Capital Metro Board directed their staff to work with our nonprofit to develop a plan for the corridor. And I would also add, with the intent of that resolution was that we would be on calls like this as a panelist. I don't think there's any question about that. We're still working toward that, and we're eager to find some kind of way that we can actually be a true partner, because I think that was what the board had intended, and I think it's what the community needs. We for sure support including a pedestrian and bicycle trail through the McKalla Station area, in addition to other specific accommodations, and those frankly are way too detailed to go into at this time. So what I would encourage is that we have a time to actually work with Capital Metro staff on this. And I just want to be clear, Capital Metro staff has not been working closely with the city of Austin on the design of the station. So I just want to clear that up. I don't think it's fair to say that that's been the case. That has started within the last week or two. And then the other thing is, we'd be happy to work with Capital Metro on this. But again, we asked almost a year ago to work with them on this, and finally got to see some designs just several weeks ago. Background, as this was stated, Capital Metro included the Red Line Trail in the 2004 Metro Rail Red Line election in order to add value to that election and to persuade more voters to support the Metro Rail Red Line proposal. And since then, only 10 to 15% of the trail has been completed. Capital Metro's proposed trail alignment away from the McKalla Station area is focused on their stated concern about safety. However, their proposal shifts the trail route away from their purview while actually multiplying and shifting the risk and decreasing safety to both trail users and to transit users. Their proposed route is less safe, routing thousands of daily users and daily trail users and transit users across several busy driveways via a confusing circuitous route. The proposed route also diverts transit users away from the station, which is contrary to the fundamental purpose of what a transit station is for. Capital Metro's existing stations already include trail access through the station areas at every single station, with the exception of Kramer Station, which is a temporary station. And countless other rail stations throughout the country include rail trails. And when designed right, which is what we're asking for, it is a positive and safe experience for all. We would also like the station design to be improved to provide better access for those using wheelchairs and personal mobility devices, and for the visually impaired, not simply to meet the ADA minimums. Though such improvements often have the result of also helping those to get around by bike, we don't think that such improvements should be avoided simply to thwart bicycle mobility and access to transit. And I just want to add also, outside of the station area, it is nationwide best practices, Federal Railroad Administration best practices and allowances to fit double tracking and a trail within a 50-foot right of way. I have asked Capital Metro staff for the last 4 years, including repeatedly over the last 2 years, to provide any evidence to the contrary, and there is none. I've talked with countless rail regulation experts, there is none. A trail can fit within that right of way. And so I appreciate the concerns about the 50-foot right of way. I think it's valid within a station area specifically, but when outside of the station area, or not, I shouldn't say outside of the station area, outside of the platform area, it's valid. Or inside the platform area, obviously you need space for that, but north and south of there, that's just not the issue that Capital Metro is claiming it is. And again, all we've been asking for the last 4 years is just evidence to the contrary. Previous partners for the last 2 decades have asked for that from the city prior to Katie Weddick. This is a marathon, and I do not understand. This just doesn't make sense. This is frankly a betrayal to Capital Metro voters.
Thanks, Tom. Let's see. First, I did want to mention just that we have interpretation staff in the background. So when speaking, please keep that in mind to speak a little slowly for their purpose. They're still catching up in the background. We're going to pass this question on to some members of the project team. I think a lot of the question that was there is about accommodating the bike lane within a 50-foot right of way. I think we've had some other conversations that the safety issues are not just the width of that right of way, but there are other concerns at play. Is there anything that you can discuss at this time about that, and why this connection in this area is up in the air at the moment?
I can talk about it. First of all, thank you, Mr. Wald, for meeting with us on 16th of November. And we had some good discussions with you, and where we noted your concerns and your questions. And we will definitely continue to work with our partners at the city and try to find a solution for accommodating some bike trail there. We also met with Nina Rinaldi from Shoal Creek Conservancy and had discussions with her as well. And we noted her questions and concerns as well. And we will work with the city, as I mentioned earlier, and try to find some solution about providing the bikeway. But there will be some discussions held with the city officials, city staff, and we'll try to figure out something. As it was mentioned earlier, this is only 30% design stage, and at this time we will collect some more input and feedback from the community members, and going forward with 30% to 100% design, we'll try to implement some of the concerns in that design.
And just to be clear, to piggyback again on that question, is the width of the right-of-way the only concern for accommodating the bike lane in that area?
That is a major concern. We have only 50 feet right of way available, and we had to accommodate 2 tracks, and then also it gave us only 8 feet of width available to accommodate the sidewalk south of Breaker Lane, and there is about 8 feet more available, which is being consumed by an open concrete riprap channel. to accommodate all the stormwater drainage that is coming from the local area. Not to mention of the major storm drainage that is coming from north of Breaker side, which we are going to convey further south in an underground culvert. But this local stormwater drainage has to be collected in an open channel. And that is why we could not widen, we could not provide more width of the sidewalk. We could just restrict it to only 8 feet. The right of way is a major constraint in this area.
And I'd like to add to King's comments that in addition to the tight right of way, the one critical thing we're trying to work through is just those pinch points between that sidewalk area and the crossing there going from Delta Drive to the Q2 Stadium. So there'll be a lot of traffic intersecting at that point in time. And I know a couple of the comments that we've received this evening had some ideas for how to potentially address that. So we appreciate those comments. And so those are the things that we're looking for so we can work with the city and try to address that and see if there are solutions that we can come up with, because we strongly encourage pedestrian and bicycle access to the stadium and to this station. And so we are looking for solutions.
And I've put this image back on the screen because a lot of the discussion has been talking about this space in this area for accommodation. And I think you just addressed a little bit about this crossing, that there's this interaction in this area. That is part of that discussion.
Right, that is the critical area there.
Okay, so some of this is part of the discussion in addition to some of the flow in this direction. Does anybody else have any other comment about that? Otherwise, I'd like to kick it back to Jackie, who's been monitoring Q&A, and then we can move to Richard Fadley for live commentary as well.
I must add that at this crossing, at this pedestrian crossing, thousands of people will be crossing from east to west and west to east. And that's why we have provided 24 feet wide crossing, which is 3 times more than the regular pedestrian crossings that we provide across the rail tracks. There will be a confluence there. If the sidewalk, the pedestrians will be coming from Breaker Lane side, and if we allow the bikes also to come from that side, it'll be a big conflict and it'll be a safety hazard. But we are open to the ideas and we will discuss them as Ken Cartwright mentioned earlier. We'll work with the city to find some solutions and see if we can accommodate some.
I'm glad you mentioned that a bit, just because I've been riding my bike, down by the downtown station for many years, and when South by Southwest comes, I almost avoid that bikeway because of the traffic to and from. Thankfully, there's now that sky bridge that helps a little bit in that crossing area. Let's see, Jackie, did you have any?
Yeah, we have a few. We have a few questions from Ricardo Tremino. Asking about or making a comment about that he assumes restroom facilities will be provided. What do we know about restroom facilities at McKalla?
We are not providing any restroom facilities at this station. And at none of our other 9 stations, we have any restroom facilities.
Okay, let's see. We have a question from Anonymous. Is there precedent elsewhere on the Red Line for using a portion of the rail right-of-way for public sidewalks or trails?
So far, yeah.
Oh, I would say, King, with your experience with the Red Line, I would defer to you. I know that there is a percentage of the 32 miles of Red Line that has trails adjacent to it, including the Lance Armstrong Bikeway, the Boggy Creek Trail, as well as the portion of what's termed the Red Line Trail in the Highland Station area along Airport Boulevard. But I believe, King, all of that is outside of the right-of-way within the city of Boston.
That's correct. We have at MLK, there's a trail going across the station, but again, it is not going in parallel to our railroad right-of-way. It's a leased area at McKalla Station that accommodates that portion of the bikeway, but not in the Capital Metro Railroad.
Here's kind of a fun one. from Oliver Harrington, and we've only got about 4 minutes left, so I want to make sure and get a couple more in here. What about the soccer ball lights? Are those still in the design?
I'm going to leave that to King or Ken.
We have not considered that in the 15% preliminary design. The answer is no.
Okay, thank
Jackie,
you.
Can we slide over to the people who've had their hand raised?
Sure. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, didn't realize. Yes,
Let's see.
absolutely.
I think
And
Richard,
Lonnie, are we going to get cut off at 6:30 or can we continue?
we can make a little room for these.
Excellent. Okay, great.
Richard Bailey, I've opened up your mic. Can you unmute yourself?
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Hey, thanks for the presentation. I just had a couple of quick questions, and then, of course, part of my participation here, my time here is that I'm like other speakers that have already spoken. I'm supporting the Red Line Parkway initiative and the throughway that they're advocating for. But one of the questions I have is, I guess I'm not really clear. Is this station going to be open at all times, or is it just, does it only pick up and drop off when there are games and so forth? That much wasn't really clear to me. And I realize it's only probably, it's probably less than 1,000 feet or so from the Kramer station. So if this becomes a full-fledged, full-time station, what does that mean for the Kramer station? Is it gonna be shut down, or you operate two stations that are, that close to one another? Or what is, what is the plan there? That's one question. And the other thing was that on some of the charts that you showed, of course, a lot of the discussion here has been about the bike path or what the 30% design route is. And I just wonder if you have any screen you can share that shows the complete bike ped or the Red Line Parkway pathway that you're proposing, the proposed route through there, because I saw it kind of veered off from the station a little bit, but I wasn't really clear where it went and what kind of crossings you're proposing that it had to encounter. But anyway, I'll just throw it back to you. But in general, yeah, I do, like the other speakers, I do support a through route for that, for the Red Line Parkway. That's kind of what was promised. Well, maybe promised is a strong word, but if you look at the 2007 maps and things that were presented back, back at that time, I was on the BAC, the Bicycle Council, and that we had presentations that indicated this was going to be part of the plan. I don't want to see us deviate from that plan, but I understand that you've got some constraints that you're working with there. So I'll open it back up to your comments, and if you could just especially explain how the station is going to be used for those, other times.
Sure.
Thanks, Richard. I just wanted to point you to this map first, because there were those two questions. One was about the bike and the other's about the station. So I've got the system map up so that'll make it a little bit easier for you.
Oh, good. Thanks, Lonnie. And thanks for the question. That's actually a really good question. So the McKalla station will be a full-time station when it opens. So it's not only a special events station for the soccer games. It will be open every day to run normal service as well. And you mentioned the Kramer station. So, and you may or may not be aware that we have a partnership to build the Broadmoor station, which Ronnie has zoomed in on there just a little bit further north. So when these two stations, the Broadmoor station and the McKalla station, are constructed and put into service, then we will remove the Kramer station. So you won't have that one in the middle. We'll have two nearby stations instead of the Kramer station that's in the middle there. So I hope that answered your first question. Your second question maybe referred back to the drawing where it showed the current alignment for the Red Line Parkway going through the soccer stadium property. So I don't know if Katie,
try to put the slides.
Lonnie, that is slide number 8.
Okay, let's see how I do. Let me pull back.
Next one.
Oh,
This one. Yeah,
right. It's up.
So at this time, the bikers are coming from Breaker Lane, entering into Q2 Stadium from Aguilar Street. and then that is the red path which is being shown here. And then they go further south and exit the Q2 Stadium property from west McKalla Place area. The 15% preliminary engineering design or 30% engineering design included a sidewalk which is 8 foot wide from Breaker Lane, parallel to our tracks, coming and meeting with the 24 feet wide crossing near the platforms here. That is what is considered as a security hazard, safety hazard, because if the bikers come from this 8 foot wide path, then they're going to meet with thousands of pedestrians crossing these tracks here. And that is a biggest safety hazard for Capital Metro. That is what we would like to avoid. But certainly we're open to ideas at this time and discuss with the city officials. All those ideas will be evaluated and discussed with the city officials, and we can go further.
So to clarify, King, there is a plan for bike connectivity regardless in this area. The question is whether it diverts at this point around the plaza or it goes through the plaza and continues up the tracks.
No, the current plan does not encourage it going through the plaza area and to the sidewalk here and going to the Breaker Lane. It has always been coming from Aguilar Street and going through Q2 Stadium and exiting at McKalla Place.
Okay, but I think, Lonnie, what we're hearing this evening is the request for the possibility of routing it through as you drew it out there.
Okay, just making sure that we're saying the same thing and I'm understanding what you're saying as well.
Right.
Let's see, Jackie, I still had another live requester, but do you want to cover some Q&A questions first?
I've got one here, more of a general question from Kristen Kaiser. I really want to take the red line to and from work, but as it is now, it doesn't run early enough in the morning and only runs once every hour in the evening. Are there plans to increase the frequency and hours? And I know that we have Dave Deck here. I wonder if Dave wants to answer this one.
Yeah, I can touch on this. We have a series of projects, these double track projects here, the double tracking that we're doing between Cedar Park and Leander, and along with some other optimization projects that we'll be working on over the next year or so that have the goal of being able to increase frequency. And as the needs permit, we can adjust the hours if our planning departments says that we can do that. We do have to keep in mind that we are obligated to share our line with freight at night. We have a legal obligation through the common carrier agreements and the NTSB to do that. But our goal here over the next several years absolutely is to be able to increase the frequency and be able to allow people to use the red line earlier and later in the evening.
Great. We've got another question here. This is from Cale Newman. Will the new station platform support 2-car trains?
Yes, it will. We'll have, when this is done, we'll have a platform at downtown station capable of accommodating double car trains. These platforms at McKalla are designed for double trains, and the latest design for Broadmoor will also include double platforms.
Thanks, Dave. And then I think this is a question for King or Ken. Tom Schwartz says, why are you showing hard 90-degree turns on the sidewalk? Not user-friendly at all. See our guidelines, and then he provides the URL. Can somebody speak to that?
We have not shown any 90 degrees turn on the sidewalks. The sidewalk that is coming from south from Breaker Lane, it meets with this pedestrian crossing across the tracks, and there's no 90-degree turn anywhere. It's a gradual turn here.
Right. I think the reference is to, if you continue on that red trail, if you're heading south or east on that
right
red trail, there's that sharp turn right there.
Yeah, that is the construction that has been completed by Q2 Stadium, and Capital Metro this is already built there, and Capital Metro does not own this area. Capital Metro will be constructing this plaza area over here, which is shown in green, adjacent to the platform on the west side. And that is also the Q2 property that will be building this plaza area.
There was another slide showing two hard 90-degree turns for sidewalk. Not this slide. I'm sorry, I don't remember which slide.
Lonnie, can you go to slide number 7? This is the breaker lane, and our sidewalk is coming all along the tracks here, which is 8-foot wide sidewalk. And on the west side of the sidewalk is the open concrete riprap channel to convey the stormwater drain. And if you go to slide number 9, let us see if it's there. We have not shown any sidewalk there. This one is a bikeway through Q2 Stadium, the red one, which exits to McKalla Place. And this has already been constructed by Q2 Stadium.
I'm sorry, this is Mike Schofield from Austin Transportation. Could we go back to slide 8? I think I'm understanding what people are asking. I think the question is probably understanding that red path is constructed by Q2 Stadium, but that a connection next to the rail would straighten that, and that generally trails don't have kind of a sharp 90-degree bend like that. I believe that's what people are getting at.
Yeah, but currently the bikes are using this path from Aguilar Street, coming down east and then turning right along this path, which has already been constructed by Q2 Stadium. And we have no say in that one because it's already constructed.
Right, but we certainly understand the comment, yeah, that 90-degree turns are not ideal in any sort of trail.
All right, some other questions that were there in the chat. Do you have some to bring up to us?
Well, I had somebody type in that, looking at the chat, that they think they missed something about a drainage ditch and can't tell from the renderings they've seen so far what it is. Could we pull the image back up and explain or re-explain, sorry if I missed it, where that is and what constraints it presents to the design?
That'll be slide number 8, sorry, 9, this one, number 9, yeah. We have got 2 drainages here. One is coming from north of Breaker area. We're collecting all that stormwater through the underground culverts, and that culvert will join here with the barrel of culverts going across the tracks, and then daylighting it on the east side, which will be a water outfall into a creek. Other than that, we have a surface drainage collection through a concrete riprap channel, which is also parallel to the platforms and the track on west side. If you go to next slide, please, which shows a cross section. That will be this riprap channel here, which is collecting the local stormwater drainage, and then it will also be conveyed into that culvert that I immediately, earlier talked about. It will cross the tracks and daylight it on the east side of the railroad right of way. So,
and let's make sure that we understand this is the west side, right?
This is the west side. This is east side, and this is in parallel to the sidewalk, 8-feet sidewalk that we are accommodating within the right of way. And this portion beyond the red line, which is a Capital Metro Railroad right-of-way line shown here, beyond this point is the drainage public utility easement, where we are trying to accommodate this locally collected stormwater, and that will be conveyed through this channel. And the culvert that is underground, which conveys the stormwater coming from north of Breaker area, which is a huge quantity, we're going to convey that through this 7x5 culvert. It's a box culvert. It'll be underground underneath this sidewalk.
Thanks for that clarification. It makes it a little bit easier to see, I think. Jackie, do you have some other Q&A?
Yes, Ryan Johnson added this question. What would the cost of acquiring extra right-of-way in this area to accommodate both open swale drainage and an adequately wide shared use path be? Has the option actually been studied, and if not, can it be? And then it looks like Michael Green has his hand up.
There is built up area along west side as well as on the east side. So that's a big constraint to acquire more land to accommodate open channels and accommodate any bike trail or anything else there. Because both sides, on east and west side, just south of Breaker, everything is built up.
Yeah.
Alejandro, oh, whoops, sorry, Ken.
I was going to say, Jackie, that we're aware that several of the surrounding properties are actively filing site development plans to be redeveloped. So they're in various stages of development at this point in time.
Okay, we have a question from Alejandro Ortega Morales, and that is the span currently constrained by the freight line?
Well, the freight line, I'll help with this because I think maybe I confused the issue. So we own the line. Capital Metro owns the line. However, we are legally obligated under the 1982 Staggers Act. We can't stop running freight. That's why we contract with the Austin Western Railroad to fulfill our legal obligations to service freight customers along the line. So we don't, we have a legal obligation to continue to service freight customers that want to be served along the line. We can't just shut them down. So we own the right of way, but we do contract out to the Austin Western Railroad to handle our freight obligations that are under the common carrier laws.
Jackie, can we go to Michael Green, who's been waiting very
Sure, absolutely, yes, thank you.
All right, Michael, you should be able to unmute.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Can
Yes.
hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you for having me. I'll try to make it not too super long here, so because I know we're running short of time. I had a couple of things I wanted to ask. I know, and probably a lot of this is going to be asking King about this. I know he said earlier, like 20,000. You're setting this up for 20,000 people. The stadium is 20,000 people, so I don't know what your capture rate of riders that you think might be. And also I heard the speaker talk about riding downtown during South by. And I just want to remind you that South by is almost 1 million people. It's a lot different than the stadium maybe. But anyway, I was going to say, I wanted to ask King if he had other ideas of the bike path, and that if he was thinking that it was going to be added to a road, like will it intersect with cars? Because that's I think a big issue for a lot of us is not to have the bike path interact with cars along the way. While everybody was talking, I had the idea, because I know King had said that they had talked about raising the train or even lowering it into the ground, and that there was issues with those. Have they thought about raising the bike trail and maybe even using the bike trail as a awning for rain? Because I see that y'all in your design that you have some spots for people to stand under if it was raining, and I feel like if the trail would be going along the rail there would be a spot at Breaker to cross Breaker, and I think that would double as a great area for people walking to the game from the Hop Squad area and all this other stuff, that they'd be able to cross there. And I don't feel like bikes and people are as big of an issue, because when you have enough people, bikes stop and they walk. You know, they're not running through people. That's so anyway, was my thoughts on some of it, and I just wanted to ask that people make sure not to put the bike path in the roadway, because I feel like that stops a lot of people from getting on bikes and trying other modes of transportation.
Right. I'll try to address the first question about elevated bikeways. In this preliminary design, we have not considered elevated bikeways along the railroad right of way. And the second question, I think, was about the bikeway along the roads. Since we have not explored and we are not responsible for providing the bikeways, and we have not considered anything parallel to the breaker lane. I think that is a city question, and if anybody from the city could address that question, that'll be great.
Is there
Hey,
anybody
everyone.
from our, oh, hello.
Sorry, I have a little cold. I'm a little slow to respond. But the current route right now, which is supposed to be a temporary route, is on street on Aguilar with the shared use path on Breaker crossing two driveways.
Thanks, Jen. Jackie, did you have other questions that you wanted to bring to light tonight?
Let's see. Will the slides from tonight's presentation be made public? The answer is yes. I finally have an answer to a question. It is yes. We will be posting them on the website, hopefully by next week.
And for those of you who aren't familiar, if you go to the Project Connect website, there's a red button at the top that says Get Involved. If you go to that page and scroll to the bottom, there is a engagement library there that has every public meeting we have hosted so far as part of Project Connect. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because sharing an individual link to every single presentation is going to be hard to remember, but you can always remember to go to Project Connect and click on Get Involved, and scroll to the bottom of the page and click on the library. Next, Jackie.
I think that's all our questions. The rest are comments, unless I'm missing anything. Oh, here we go. Will any accommodation be provided for pedestrian bicycle access across the tracks here? In other words, from Delta Drive to McKalla? That's from Ryan.
Yes, pedestrians can just walk the bike across the tracks on that 24-foot wide pedestrian crossing. And we will have some bike racks on the east side along Delta Drive, as well as some in the plaza area.
That is the last question I believe I have. I don't know if anybody else has their hand raised.
Let's see, we've got some more questions coming in through chat.
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, Christopher Heathcott. Several folks have mentioned putting a cap on the drainage ditch. Have you considered using that space for the Red Line Parkway?
Well, we have to provide the sidewalk, which we have provided about 8 feet for accessibility of pedestrians. And we have to leave about 8 to 10 feet for that concrete riprap drainage ditch, because otherwise it'll be a big challenge to convey that local stormwater from that area. We have conveyed the stormwater from north of Breaker area, which is in a huge quantity. We have conveyed that through underground culvert, but for collecting the local stormwater drainage, we had to provide the concrete riprap channel in that area. If we take it underground, we will have to provide the vertical open chambers to collect the runoff from the local area, which will be an impediment to providing any trails in that area.
Just as a piggyback to that, I think somebody was asking, why is Capital Metro obligated to convey this local stormwater runoff?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, everybody all along our railroad right-of-way is dumping stormwater into a railroad right-of-way, and it becomes hard on Capital Metro to improve all the cross drainage systems that we have on the railroad right-of-way. This becomes a big responsibility for us to increase the sizes. In fact, we are in the process of increasing the capacity of our bridges, culverts, everything, and it is something that we have to take up with the city, because everybody is dumping water on the railroad right of way, which is a big challenge for Capital Metro, and it involves a lot of investment into upgrading our structures.
King, are you saying the issue is that if the storm water isn't dealt with, it would impact the service of the rail itself?
It is going to impact Capital Metro financially as well, and we have to upgrade all our structures, because the amount of stormwater drainage that is being dumped on the railroad right of way is enormous.
I'd just like to add from the city perspective that we're currently doing a scan of our city code to determine if there are areas of the code that can be changed to enable Project Connect to be implemented more efficiently. So that is one of the items that we're looking at, and we're glad to continue further discussing that. In addition, perhaps even contribute funding to cap that, if that would be a possibility.
Exciting. Let's see, I think Tom Wald has asked to speak since we've got some time. And again, we're getting down to the last 7 minutes of this workshop. So let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and open up your mic again, Tom, so you can sort of get the top and tail commentary tonight.
Sure, thanks, Lonnie. I really want to say I appreciate y'all, especially Capital Metro staff, for communicating so much with the public on this tonight, and also that City of Austin was able to participate too and provide some important, even possible win-win opportunities like Jen just noted. From our perspective, our intent in forming an organization and approaching Randy Clark and the board to work toward a partnership to create a plan was the intent to be proactive about this, to do this deliberately when we're not under a time crunch, and when we can all have a clear dialogue about where we're coming from. And I would encourage that going forward. We've recommended a number of approaches to creating a plan with Capital Metro staff. We're gonna have a couple meetings next week. I'm looking forward to a solution on this, but I think that's really going to be the best path forward, is to get a good plan and ahead of time, and address how we can fit the trail in perhaps nearly all or all of the corridor. And yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, Lonnie.
Lonnie, you're on mute.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you everybody who's been here and contributing comments in the Q&A as well as in the chat. All of your written comments are part of the official record of this meeting, and will be sent to the design and planning team. So I sincerely appreciate your involvement. We had a little over 120 participants at the largest point tonight. So clearly a lot of interest with this in the community. Jackie, are there any final items from the Q&A, or did we?
No other questions.
No. So I wanted to give the panel, if there are any final thoughts, just before we go.
I just want to express my appreciation for everyone coming out tonight. It was really valuable to hear all of your feedback, and we look forward to continuing to work with Capital Metro on finding a solution here that works for everyone.
And I wanted to echo Jen's comments. Thank you all for taking your time to spend with us this evening and give us your thoughts and ideas. It's very valuable and very helpful as we work through the design process on this project.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the broadcast tonight. Again, we will be placing this recording as well as the PowerPoint slides on the Project Connect website. It'll very likely be by the middle of next week. So just give us a little bit of time to prepare those materials. But again, thank you for your comments. I can assure you that they influence some of the decision-making behind the scenes, and we hope to see you at further discussions about this and other projects. Again, please visit projectconnect.com for more, and please consider staying involved. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.